Way back, over a century ago, the brilliant psychologist Carl Jung came up with a technique that's kind of like a key to unlock the hidden, unconscious parts of our minds. So today, we're going to dive into this incredible tool, the association method. So, let's start with a really intriguing question. Can just one single word and your gut reaction to it actually reveal the secrets that are buried deep down inside your psyche? Well, Jung was convinced it could. You see, Carl Jung wasn't the kind of guy who was just happy with abstract theories. No, he was on a hunt for a scientific, measurable way to explore the unconscious. He needed a tool to look past what people say they think and feel, and to zoom in on what they hesitate on, what they stumble over, because that's where the real story is. And that tool? It was the association method. Now, the core idea is deceptively simple. You give a person a list of words, one after another, and you give them one simple instruction. Answer as quickly as you can with the very first word that pops into your head. Sounds simple enough, right? But oh man, the results are anything but. Okay, so the process itself is pretty straightforward. The person running the test says a word, let's say water. The person taking the test responds, maybe with ocean. But, and this is the secret sauce, the time it takes them to respond is measured with extreme precision. I mean, we're talking down to a fifth of a second. That timing is everything. But here's where it gets really fascinating. Jung wasn't just listening to the answers. Nope, he was hunting for the glitches, the stumbles, the weird delays. He figured out that these weren't just random mistakes. They were like little blinking arrows, pointing directly to emotionally charged areas of the mind. And this quote from Jung himself just hits the nail on the head. He's saying words aren't just sounds. They are packed, totally jam-packed, with memories, feelings, and entire situations. Think about it. When you hear a word like family or love, your mind doesn't just process the sound. It instantly summons a whole universe of your own personal experiences. And these little landmines, these emotionally charged areas, that's what Jung famously called a complex. The best way to think about it is like a psychological sore spot. It's this cluster of repressed ideas and memories all swirling around a specific theme, like authority or failure, that without you even knowing it is pulling the strings on how you act and feel. Okay, so how do you actually know when the test has poked one of these sore spots? Well, you look for the telltale signs. A sudden, really long pause before answering, or maybe not being able to answer at all. Sometimes people repeat the word back just to buy time. Or even funnier, they forget what they said when you ask them a few minutes later. All of these are huge red flags that you've just struck an emotional nerve. All right, this all sounds great in theory, but does it actually work in the real world? You bet it does. Let me tell you about this incredible case where Jung used his method, which he called a diagnosis of facts, to solve an actual crime. So picture this, a hospital. A nurse discovers that 70 francs have been stolen right out of her locked cupboard. The key was hidden, but only a handful of people could have known where. Suspicion immediately falls on 3 other nurses. So Jung gets clever. He designs a test with a bunch of normal, everyday words, but he sprinkles in some critical words. These are words that would only trigger an emotional reaction from someone who is involved. Words like key, theft, and he even threw in the name of a local shoe shop, Dassenbach, because there was a receipt from there in the stolen pocketbook. Brilliant, right? So he brings in the 3 suspects for the test. And the results? Whoa. They were absolutely stunning. When those critical words came up, 2 of the nurses had just a tiny delay in their reaction times. But nurse A, bam, her reaction time skyrockets, more than double the others. Her unconscious mind was clearly buckling under the emotional weight of those specific words. And what happens when she's confronted with this? I mean, it's the evidence of her own mind betraying her. Well, that very same evening, Nurse A made a complete confession. This is amazing, right? The test didn't just suggest she was guilty. It literally pulled the hidden truth right out into the open for everyone to see. So a story like that really makes you wonder, right? If these complexes are so powerful, where the heck do they even come from? Well, Jung used the very same method to track down the origins of our deepest emotional patterns. And he found the answer was, you guessed it, close to home. When Jung and his team tested a bunch of random, unrelated people, their association patterns were, all over the map, totally different. But then they tested members of the same family, and they found something absolutely remarkable. a strong, undeniable pattern. They tended to react in very similar ways, sometimes using the exact same words. And get this, they even put a number on it. The lowest difference score, which really means the highest level of similarity, was between mothers and their children. That number, 3.5, it's basically a measurement of the psychic link, and it shows that the mother's emotional patterns are mirrored most closely by her kids. So you have this incredibly strong psychic link, but how is it created? Is it what parents teach their kids? Well, Jung discovered it's not about the life lessons or the advice they give. Nope, it's something much, much deeper. It all goes back to the emotional atmosphere of our childhood. And Jung himself put it perfectly. It's not the do this, don't do that stuff that sticks. What really gets to a child is the emotional vibe of their parents. All their hidden worries, their secret wishes, the arguments they never have out loud. It's the stuff the parents themselves aren't even aware of, but the child picks up on it all. Think about it. A child's mind is basically like a sponge, right? It just soaks up the whole emotional climate of the house, the good, the bad, all of it. So the parents' own unresolved complexes, their own emotional sore spots, get imprinted right onto their child's developing personality, shaping how they see the world for the rest of their lives. And that, of course, brings this all back to you and me. Because what Jung's work really shows us is that every single one of us carries these echoes from our past, these emotional complexes that are quietly influencing our choices, our fears, and our relationships every single day. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What unconscious echoes are shaping your life?